So it's been just over a year since OpenAI released their reasoning models, and of course, in hindsight, being 2020, reasoning models really changed everything. Not only has every shop duplicated OpenAI's work on what was Strawberry, but we've also seen this go to kind of the next level in terms of being able to solve problems around math and coding and many other things. Now, of course, some of the naysayers like Gary Marcus still say that LLMs have been exhausted, but every time he says that, it's not true. He's basically becoming the reverse Kramer of the AI world. Now, however, today is a little bit about accountability for me, because while we can dunk on people like Gary Marcus for not updating his priors or his beliefs, or apparently not reflecting on any of his ideas at all, that is not the case here. So, just over a year ago, I wrote this tweet, which is, guys, Strawberry is literally just baked in chain of thought reasoning, which came out in January of 2022. OpenAI has nothing. It's all hype. Original chain of thought paper was published at NeurIPS in January of 2022. That got 340,000. It actually got about 280,000 views, but since my repost, it has gotten more. Now, this was probably my worst take. Now, I am known for sometimes making snap judgments, and many times they're more or less correct, but this is one of the times when it was super not correct. So yeah, I have no vanity in saying like, wow, that was a spectacularly bad take. And so then I reposted it on the 1 year anniversary, or a year and a week. I said unequivocally my worst take. Some people at OpenAI blocked me for this and have yet to unblock me. While it's technically true, this is a typo. I did not fully overestimate. This is worded weirdly. The importance of this development. So there, I will own it. After a year, this is perhaps my worst age take. It aged like bad cheese, aged like milk. So anyways, yeah. And I wanted to reflect on that, and in hindsight being 2020, it's like, okay, well, why? Like, what was my reasoning error there? And of course, in the build up to like, what is Strawberry? What is Project Orion? What are all these other things that OpenAI is doing? Because OpenAI is really good at hype and being mysterious, and less so now. They're trying to be a little bit more corporate friendly. But also what many people have noticed is that in the interceding time, the developments have become more incremental. And that's not to say that it's bad, because those incremental changes saturate benchmarks like, Humanities Final Exam and other benchmarks. But we haven't seen like a game-changing development in the last year, not since reasoning. Reasoning has really dominated this. Now, of course, what I think and what many people think is that agentic reasoning, so long time horizon style, performance, which is not just the model, by the way. Yes, the underlying model does have a lot to do with how good an agentic framework performs. But an agentic framework is more than just one model. It's also all the connectors, all the tools, all the flows of information, and the memory systems, just to name a few components, which are also getting better at the same time. Anyways, so yes, I dramatically underestimated the importance of chain of thought reasoning. And yeah, like I can't really like revisit that headspace other than to say like, well, we were trying to figure out, like what was going on. And maybe it was the kind of innovation where they spotted it in the wild and it was just an internal experiment. We might never know exactly how it evolved, but clearly OpenAI was onto something. And this is why a lot of people, myself included, because at the time I was still kind of betting against OpenAI at times. And some people in my audience and other places, they're like, oh, OpenAI they're running out of steam. I was like, I used to bet against OpenAI, but I'm not going to bet against OpenAI anymore, because, between their work culture and whatever else they got going on, clearly they have survived and thrived without Ilya, which is one thing that, we didn't know if that was going to happen. One of the reactions to the chain of thought, the reasoning models was like, this is clearly what Ilya saw. And so maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And so we thought that maybe that was going to be their last kind of hurrah. Now, speaking of snap judgments, I had this other one talking about their new Pulse feature. So I'm not going to talk about the Pulse feature directly. I'm not going to criticize it or anything. Everyone has their critiques of OpenAI's UX, but as a former infrastructure guy, I'm pretty sure I know how the conversation around Pulse went. And if you're not familiar with OpenAI's Pulse, the idea is that your AI will think about you overnight, and then you'll wake up, and then you'll be able to, it'll tell you, like, what is it that you're interested in? What are things that you should think about today? That kind of thing. And the reason that they're going in this direction, in part, is because memory has been one of the key UX features that people like. It's like, oh, it remembers more about me, and this is one of the directions that they're going on for consumer models. Memory is not necessarily the same, like remembering who you are, because we're dividing the user base into different segments. Sorry, that was a little bit complicated. What I'm trying to say is that you've got normal end users like you and me, so consumer market, and then you've got the enterprise market, which has entirely different needs. They want code, they want agentic models, and that sort of thing. So we're getting this market differentiation. So OpenAI still dominates the consumer market. They were the first to market, and they have the most saturation in terms of user base. They're still beating Claude, Gemini, Grok, all of them in terms of B2C, so business to consumer. They're not dominating on B2B anymore, which is one of the reasons that OpenAI has, particularly their dev days and their demo days, are more corporate sanitized, is because Claude, or Anthropic, is completely eating their lunch when it comes to B2B. So OpenAI has not yet fully stuck the landing of B2B. They've been completely surpassed, which is really interesting to me. So as an infrastructure guy, here's how I think Pulse came about. They're like, okay, well, you had someone looking at a spreadsheet saying, okay, we bought all these GPUs, or we're buying all this GPU time, and our customers are, the model slows down during the day. But how do we get the most use out of these expensive GPUs that are depreciating fast, and how do we use them? So that was probably the CFO or someone in finance was just looking at it as a spreadsheet. And of course they don't even know, like, finance people generally don't even know what a GPU is. Now it's OpenAI, so it could be a little bit different. But I would not be surprised if to them it's just a line item. In my experience in enterprises, people have their own lenses, and so finance people, it's like a line item. It's like, I've been asked really silly questions like, why do we need this server? It's so expensive. It's like, you realize that server is the reason that we exist, right? So finance people, they just don't connect to like what you actually need or why. And they're like, well, why can't we get a cheaper server? So a finance person was probably looking at the line item saying, these GPUs are sitting here, like, what are we doing with them? And then an infrastructure guy joins the call and says, oh, well, they're idle overnight, so if you want to use them more, we can use them overnight. And then someone else from UX or front end said, but our users are asleep at night. And then someone from the agentic team was like, well, we can just have it make it think overnight when we have spare GPU cycles. And ta-da, there's how we got OpenAI's new Pulse feature. Now, some people have said, well, yeah, but Dave, OpenAI has global users. It's true, but the vast majority of their users are in America. And so if you do some digging, the high usage time is between, I think, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time or something like that. And then, of course, Antipodean at the opposite time is when it's the most slack in their GPU stack. So it's like 2 a.m. to, or maybe like, I don't know, midnight to 3 a.m. or something like that. So anyways, they have spare GPU cycles, and it's like, well, if we're not using our GPUs to add value, then we're basically losing money on them. I mean, they're losing money on them all the time. They haven't really fully become cash positive. So anyways, that's my deep insight into OpenAI right now and some personal accountability. So thanks for watching. Have a good one, and cheers.